Hello, and welcome to the Board Brief, our video series that offers best practices in short, informative videos that you can watch on demand whenever and from wherever you want. My name is Eleanor Goldstein, and I'll be moderating today's discussion about managing homeowner dues increases. The effective management of homeowner dues is critical to your community's financial stability. And as costs go up, which we're all dealing with that now, oftentimes dues need to be increased. Proper budgeting and the assignment of dues ensures that there are funds to help pay for operating the association. This includes making repairs, maintenance, and property improvements. In this episode of the Board Brief, it's all about managing dues, why, when, and how to increase. Joining me for today's discussion are vice presidents from our South region of First Service Residential, Anthony Gragnano from South Florida. Hi, Anthony.
Hello, everyone.
And An Nguyen from Jacksonville. Hi, An.
Hi, Eleanor. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for participating. So, Anthony, let's start with you. How are prices doing in South Florida as compared to when boards created their 2022 budgets?
Well, I think everyone can attest that it's definitely been a challenging year with rising costs, both on insurance, utilities, labor, contracts. It's definitely been a hit all around. And really, as we have gone through 2022 and into the budget season, just like insurance, utilities, and labor are all affecting you as an association, it's affecting all of your vendors as well, right? So all of that sort of plays into everyone's intricate part as to how they come up with pricing and all those items. So it's definitely been a challenge, but we're addressing it as we move into 2023.
Yeah, Anthony, and what we've seen too is that the challenge is also internal within these communities because there are differing opinions with what to do with these rising costs. Some residents, they want to cut services. They want to cut costs and make sure that the dues don't go up. And yet there are other residents who understand the needs for the increases and they want to make sure their services aren't reduced. And so they are actually suggesting increasing salaries in order to keep good support in place to help manage the community. And so this causes an interesting dynamic when it comes to these board meetings and within these communities where there's just a clash between opinions.
Absolutely.
And how are associations managing those rising costs? You touched on it a little bit, but let's get into this some more.
No, absolutely. It's a few things we have control over, right? And other things we don't have control over. So when you look at insurance, right? We've all seen the increase in insurance over the year and going into next year. And with that, part of it is, do you start to look at your deductibles, right? So we've all had the privilege of having usually 2 or 3% deductibles. Do you look at possibly rising those deductibles? With utilities, do you look at possibly maybe lowering the pool temperature just a little bit? Or, in the gym, do you raise that temperature a degree or two, right? So all of that helps, but we have definitely seen a large impact on the buildings just from the overall weather across South Florida and the country and just the heat wave, right? So that creates an added heat load onto the building. And then you look at your water usage, right? So some of those items where you do have the ability to control some cost, if the association does pay for the water for the building, do you look at a flapper program, right? So what type of capital investments can you do in order to help reduce some of those costs? So a flapper program, replace the toilet flapper, reduces the water running down the toilet during the day. And in turn, there's typically a savings there. As well as you look at irrigation, right? Do you have all the tools and technology in place so that you're not watering the lawn when it doesn't need to be watered? So a few different items. And then I'm sure you have a few others.
Yeah, our boards have had to decide needs versus wants, must-haves versus nice-to-haves, and focusing on the must-haves versus those things that are just nice to have. They've reviewed credit card changes or looked for hidden fees, paying for services upfront to save overall. And some boards are talking about moving away from third-party contractors and instead hiring someone directly through their management company. For example, your janitorial contract and your pool contract. Can you get rid of those and hire a full-time maintenance person through your management company? That may actually be less expensive and provide a higher level of service, as well as more hours at the property. Now, there are some boards, Anthony, that are talking about reducing staff and property services like cleaning schedules. Can you talk about what you've seen and just kind of the risk involved in doing that?
Absolutely, right? So it's quick to say, oh, let's reduce headcount, right? And that's almost every organization, whether you're in property management, condo management, or other. It might solve the immediate need of seeing the cost reduction, but the long-term effect is going to compound itself as you continue to move forward, right? So that hallway that used to be cleaned twice a week might now only get cleaned once a week. Or, your administrative staff, if you have two people in your office, a manager and admin, and you decide you're going to get rid of an admin, that level of service or attention to detail, it's going to slip, right? So you're not going to notice it immediately. You'll notice that, the person might not be there, but the effects of that, you'll start to see a month, 3 months, 6 months down the line, when you start to realize, oh, that hallway's not painted as much and not as clean. And now you need to play catch up, right? So now you're going to be investing more to be able to bring it back to the standard that it was. So definitely a balance there, but I do recommend optimizing work schedules, right? So right now, with the headcount that you have, making sure that you are optimizing what the needs are of the community. Is everyone working and working in what they need to get done in a workday to make sure you're getting that full 40 hours for the team?
Those are great points. And, what about making money? Some boards don't think about this, but another way to combat costs is to have creative revenue streams, perhaps offering resident-only amenities like golf courses to the public for a fee. What examples can you share? Are you seeing any of this happening in your communities?
So I'm just going to start off with always speak with your attorney, check your condo docs, and make sure you're in compliance with Florida statutes and or the statutes in your state, because definitely there are a lot of different avenues that you have the ability to do. And many associations, might charge for valet, or they charge for if you have laundry facilities, right? So analyzing the costs you do have today and making sure that they're equivalent to the increases that have occurred, right? So I'll use the laundry as an example in some buildings. If you were charging $1.50 for a wash and a dry, well, that with utility costs today and the wear and tear on the machine and the maintenance, it might need to be $2.50, right? To be able to cover just your cost of utilities for that. And then when you look at valet, obviously the cost of valet and the wages for valet and the tipping to valet, all of that continues to increase. So what might have been $2 maybe now needs to be $4. And you're going to get a balancing act that needs to be done. You're going to have a lot of debate within the community when you have these conversations, but definitely looking at all of that. And what are you seeing?
Yeah, so food and beverage is becoming a big thing. Maybe you set up a grab and go in the lobby where people can come and grab a sandwich and pay for it and leave. Vending machines by the pool. We've seen communities who have increased prices for their key fobs, their access cards, lease applications, clubhouse rentals, ARB applications, increasing the fees for processing those. And then another great thing is look at your bank accounts. How are your money markets doing with regard to their interest rates? Do you really have the best interest rate possible on your money market accounts? I know First Service Residential, we have First Service Financial that partners with banks around the continent to provide higher yields for the bank accounts for these associations. So look into that, look into your banks and make sure you're getting the highest yield possible.
Wonderful. Those are some creative suggestions. Thank you both. So we've chatted about managing costs by cutting expenses, creating new revenue streams. If a community needs more income to balance out the budget, the board does need to take a look at raising homeowner dues. No board wants to raise dues, we know that, but sometimes it's necessary. So let's talk about how to handle this. Anthony, what do you advise your boards when they do need to have these conversations and raise homeowner dues?
Absolutely. So number one, communication, right? Talk about it early, set the platform, and you know that it's not that our communities are saying, oh, I want to rebuild the clubhouse next year, or I want to throw a massive party or spend funds that you don't need to be spending. These are all sort of driven by, you have to have insurance. You're obligated to have insurance, right? So what does that cost and what does that increase look like? And then you talk about utilities. What's the usage? What are we doing? And the increased cost, right? So those items that you sort of have, I say no control over, because they're governed sort of outside of the abilities of the condo board. Definitely have those conversations, have the history, put the layout there. And then you talk about your vendors and your contractors, right? So when you're looking at what you're paying for, make sure you're holding your vendor accountable for what they're contracted for. So if they're supposed to be out 4 times a month to check your pool, well, they better be out 4 times a month, and you have that documented where they getting away with maybe only showing up 3 times, right? Or maybe stretching it a little bit longer than what it should be. So holding everyone accountable is key. And then of course, just really looking at all of that, but communicate is the largest thing, because if you start to if you spring it on people overnight that, oh my God, there's going to be this increase, you're going to be in trouble, right? It's going to cause a lot of anxiety. People need to plan in their own personal lives, but if you look at all of us, right, we've all been affected in our own personal lives as to rising costs and homeowners insurance and the cost of food and the cost of gas, whatever it might be. We've seen the increases across our own personal lives. So people shouldn't be shocked that the association is seeing that effect as well. But in your board meetings, talk about it. Talk about it monthly. What's happening and what's the environment that we're in.
Yeah, those are great points. Smaller regular dues increases are actually obviously easier for homeowners financially and emotionally, as opposed to one large, huge, unexpected hike. And so maybe maybe the board needs to work together to come up with a 3 to 5 year plan. So instead of increasing it, having a large increase in 2023, have small incremental increases 2023, 2024, 2025. It all goes back to communication, as Anthony said. Be open about sharing the facts and the numbers, supporting the need for the increases. It's a good practice to give residents a 30-day notice in writing before the dues increase takes effect. Take advantage of all forms of communication, email, flyers, newsletters, website, meetings, and then ask your residents for their feedback and opinions and listen. It's so important. That would go such a long way to having a peaceful budget adoption meeting when you actually listen and gather their feedback.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for sharing those insights. This has been a great discussion on a topic that board members need to think about. Thank you, Anthony and An, for sharing your expertise with us. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for this segment of the board brief. We hope you found the information helpful and will use it in your community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.